Okay guys, so first up let's have a look at the materials and supplies that I use when I am doing my blooms. So some of these are more important than others, but I'll just run through my supply list, and you can decide if you do or don't need the extras, but a couple of these things you definitely will need. Let's start with the baby cups. These are really, really handy for keeping mixed up paint in, because we don't use a lot of coloured paint doing the blooms. You know, you can mix a half or a full cup of this. A full cup might last you a week, or a half cup. You know, you might want to make just a third of a cup if you're just doing a single session, and you want to use it all up each time. But they're really cool, really airtight. I think they hold about 70 mil, close to the top there. Just perfect for this technique, because you're not using a lot of paint. So yeah, if you want to keep your little leftovers for the next day, these are perfect little airtight containers for the job. Also, don't forget to check at the end of the course for product availability, places where you can buy everything, and links to certain stores. So we're going to help you out with that at the end of the course. So I'm basically just going to run through everything. I'm not going to say where you can and can't buy them at this stage, but yeah, just want to focus on the actual materials that we've got in front of us. So yeah, baby cups, probably my number one, can't live without. Must have. You can also use little sauce containers or dressing containers, but you just have to be really careful that the lid is actually airtight. Convenience is if they're hinged on the edge, but that's not a must. That's just a bit of a luxury that I've got on these cups here. Makes it easier to open them one-handed if you're going to be pouring. Well, I said that and then it wasn't that easy, but yeah, you can just sort of hold them and close them up if you're busy with your other hand. Okay, so awesome product there. Pretty simple one, paint stirring stick. Obviously you don't need to use one from a paint store, but really good for gently mixing up your pillow paint without creating too many bubbles. So I use these quite a bit. Stir sticks. These, you're definitely going to need some little stir sticks like this. Look, popsicle paddle pop sticks are fine, but these are much better because they have a nice little flat edge on here, and they've got a thicker end and a thinner end. So this is sometimes good for stirring. This is good for scraping pigment off the edges of the cup, etc., etc. So grab yourself some mixing sticks. It's always handy to have some little plastic party cups. If you prefer silicone, that's fine, but when you're mixing larger amounts of paint or like a small batch of pouring medium, these cups are really handy as well. So stir sticks, gloves. So as we all know, acrylic pouring is very, very messy, and the bloom technique is no exception to that mess. So disposable gloves, probably a really nice idea if you like to keep your fingernails and your hands clean. That's a pretty simple one. Okay, painter's tape. Now don't be fooled, this is not your regular sticky tape or masking tape. It is quite pricey, but you get your value for money because it really does not let the paint seep in behind it. If you decide you want to tape up the back of your boards, I would definitely go for something like this, especially if you're planning on doing resin on your artwork afterwards. Definitely need a roll of proper painter's tape. Okay, a level, not essential, but handy for checking if your surface is level. Look, the bloom recipe uses quite thick paints, so we're not worried too much about it moving ever so slightly, but if you're really worried about if it's way off, definitely a little level comes in handy to just make sure that you're painting, especially if you do a really amazing bloom and you don't want it to shift overnight when it's drying. Make sure you level your surface up prior to starting. Okay, so we're not going to talk about resin safety in this course because I do have a couple of little resin tutorials in the Facebook group and out there on my pages somewhere. I talk about coating artwork in resin and the safety requirements that that takes. So this is not good enough for resin. You would need a proper respirator, but for particularly mixing dry pigments, I recommend wearing one of these dust masks, a good quality one, when you're mixing the dry powders, so they can come up out of the container and you don't want to be breathing them in. So always have a dust mask handy for working with dry powders. Okay, drop sheets. Anything will do. You can use a sheet, plastic tablecloth, upside down. Upside down board is a great little way to catch paint, but it gets quite messy and it all gets stuck on there. So it's a good idea to have something you can peel the paint off. So a vinyl tablecloth is perfect. You can peel paint drips off it after they've dried and reuse it. Very handy little supply there. So vinyl tablecloth. Something skinny for creating modified blooms and swirling. I just use the end of a paintbrush, but you can use anything, toothpick, strand of spaghetti, anything that you've got that you can just grab to make some patterns in your art when you get a little bit more advanced out of the regular bloom. Baby wipes. We all know how good these are. We use them around the home even when we don't have babies anymore. They're good for everything, so yeah, nice to wipe your hands on and just clean up some little spills. Swiping tools. I have an assortment of different sizes here, as long as they've got a nice flat edge. They're great for swiping the paint. And of course, you've got your smaller ones for making patterns and swiping across the top, like a few different sizes there. Don't forget, if you're wondering where to get all this stuff, don't forget to check out all the information at the end of the course with the suitable links, etc. And now the last thing is, of course, you need something to paint on. So boards. I prefer the hard wood boards. Reason being, when you blow down on the paint, which is how we execute our bloom pour, sometimes with a canvas, if it's not extremely good quality, it can be a little bit sort of flexible in the middle, and you know, you blow down and it doesn't sort of give you a hard surface on the back for that paint to spread out, and it can sometimes seep back into the middle into a puddle. Not to say you can't use canvas. Canvases come in all different sizes, as you know. When you're practicing, it might be a good idea to get a little 4x4 or a 6x6 canvas just to practice your blowing, practice your pillow, and all the other components of your bloom execution. Tiles are also good. I don't have any, never really used tiles, but lots of people using tiles for practicing at the start. I know you can get big boxes of those quite cheap from your hardware store or your tile store. So yeah, canvas, my choice is the hard boards. These come in all different sizes. I get them from a few different places here and there. So yeah, that wraps up our equipment, supplies and materials segment for you. So try to get all these things, or most of these things, or what you feel you'll definitely need before you start pouring, because it can be a little bit daunting to start making a huge mess and then you don't have everything in place to deal with that. Two last things are, if you're planning on filming your work for one of your social medias, these are really handy. Phone holder with a adjustable thing on the front here. These are awesome. I do a lot of my filming on my phone and can't live without this little contraption. Also, we do tilt and spin. So tilting, obviously you don't need any kind of apparatus except for two hands and a bit of direction. Otherwise, you can buy a simple Lazy Susan. Just looks like this. It's got a smaller part on the bottom, larger part on the top. Pop your artwork on, and I actually stick just an upside down board, bigger than this obviously, to cover up out to here or even a bit further. I just glue that onto there like that, and basically, yeah, gives me a little sort of an amateur spinner. If you're first starting out, once you get a little bit more advanced, you might be looking at a pottery wheel or something a little bit more sturdy and larger. Okay, so that's it for the materials.